Hi, I'm Linda, and this is No Frills ASMR. I thought today we could talk about Citizens United, which will then lead us into super PACs and money that goes towards getting people elected to office in the United States. And before I start, I'll tell you, because I know some of you are like, oh, here she goes. This is a literal both sides issue. This is not a left or right issue. If you care about it for one side, you care about it for both sides. So that's where I'll start. So what we're talking about is called Citizens United. Now, it's called that because there was a Supreme Court case in 2010, Citizens United versus the FEC, the Federal Elections Committee. And Citizens United was a conservative nonprofit organization, and they wanted to air a film that was critical of Hillary Clinton before the 2008 Democratic primaries. And the FEC was, I guess, trying to stop them. So they took it all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court voted in a 5-4 verdict to support Citizens United. So that's why it's called that, Citizens United. I mean, when people discuss this, and it was sort of a the Citizens United were saying that by stopping them from spending the money on this film they were going to make, or they had made, that was infringing on their free speech. And so that is what the court ruled, is that the government cannot restrict individual political spending because of free speech laws, that it was protecting the First Amendment. So they said the government cannot restrict individual spending, and individual can be nonprofit organizations, and this is political spending, I guess. Whatever. Anyway, by corporations, labor unions, and nonprofit organizations. The majority, the 5-4 majority, said basically political spending is a form of protected speech. But this ruling did not allow corporations to donate directly to candidates. So you can't make your donations directly to a candidate. But this decision led to the rise of what are known as super PACs. And PAC is capitalized because it stands for Political Action Committee. Now, there's different types of PACs. There's a traditional PAC, and they can donate directly to candidates, but only up to legal limits. There are some limits. They can also spend money independently, but they must follow contribution limits. A super PAC is a little different. They cannot donate directly to a candidate, but they can raise unlimited amounts of money from individuals, corporations, unions, and other groups. So this can be an unlimited amount of money. And they can get their money from, like I said, individuals, corporations, unions, any other groups who want to give to them. And they can spend unlimited amounts to support or oppose a candidate as long as it does not legally coordinate with the candidate. So they're sort of separate from the candidate, and technically they can't legally coordinate with them. So a traditional PAC, political action committee, has limited donations to candidates they can do, and then they can spend money outside of there. A super PAC has unlimited independent spending, but cannot make any direct donations to candidates. Okay, so when people talk about PAC money, they could mean either a traditional PAC or a super PAC, but they're governed by different rules. All right, so that's just the basics of Citizens United. Now, people who like support super PACs say the first, or all of the Citizens United, that the First Amendment protects political speech, and the government shouldn't be able to decide who gets to speak. And this money is sort of speech, and that more political speech is better than less. So if they want to spend money on all these ads and flyers, and that's why sometimes you'll hear about a campaign saying, this PAC sent out this flyer, I don't agree with this flyer, because technically they're not supposed to ever coordinate with each other. So the PAC could make a flyer that isn't something that the candidate themselves maybe would say. And so that's why sometimes you see that. But that's all part of the political speech. Now, critics of Citizens United say it basically gives a lot of decision making to wealthy donors, and it gives corporations way too much influence over elections. It just keeps increasing the amount of money that's in politics, and it kind of makes ordinary voters' opinions drowned out by these large spending campaigns. So let's just kind of talk about that a little bit. I thought maybe on this nice crinkly paper here, we could kind of, I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, wait, let me draw this out for a second. So, how does this open? Whoops, I'm upside down maybe. So let's say in this little map of how things might work, you have over here, wow, I didn't mean to write that. That'll work. Okay. An anonymous donor. Now, this anonymous donor could be a millionaire, a billionaire, a trillionaire, could be a corporation that has a strong interest in a certain person winning a campaign, or in, now they can't technically, well, this is what we'll get into. So here's this anonymous donor, and they can give money to let's put a green. Hold on. Let me get a different one. Okay, so they're sending some money. Now they're not giving it directly to a campaign, because if you're an individual donor, I think you're maxed out at $3,300 that you can give directly to a campaign. And corporations can't give money directly to a campaign. So they give their money to these nonprofits. They're like 501c, nonprofit. So here their money is now in this nonprofit. And who gave the money to that nonprofit does not have to be public. Now, this nonprofit can give money. And this is what some may call, I might want to right now call, this nonprofit is what can be known as dark money. Because the nonprofit has all this money, and it's unclear where that money has come from. And then this dark money can transfer it to a super PAC. A super political action committee. Now, this transfer is reported to the Federal Elections Commission. So that does have to be reported, but it's reported as money from the nonprofit, the name of the nonprofit, not from the anonymous donor. So once the super PAC has the money, they can spend it on any kind of, they can't give it to the candidate, but they can spend it on independent candidate support, which could include mailers, advertising, on radio, on television, on the internet. Before this video, you might say something because midterm elections will be coming up soon. So they'll start putting a lot of money into that. So the candidates will benefit from this without ever touching the money. Now, so these super PACs benefit the candidates. They get benefit. And here is where it gets super gray if you're like unclear about this dark money situation. And the concern that I personally have, I don't know, is let's say your candidate is I'm trying to think of a name that doesn't, Mickey Joe, okay? Nope, not Joe. Mickey Bob. Bob? That's okay, right? Neither of these names have anything to do. All right, so Mickey Bob maybe owns the company. I can't even think. Salt, okay. Well, the company Salt could be this donor of $1 billion. And the company Salt has something to gain from Mickey Bob being elected. And nobody ever is going to know what company, what corporation, or what individual gave money. Now, this actually doesn't even, Mickey Bob can give all the money he wants to his own campaign. There is no finance law saying you can't fund your own campaign if you're a multi-trillionaire. Like if Elon Musk decided to run for president, he's now a trillionaire. At least he was a week ago, I don't know. He could fund his campaign fully. But big corporations can be these anonymous donors. And there's no saying that they aren't also in the back pocket of the candidate, this money. Okay, so that's just my concern with the whole situation. So whether they have connection to these things is a big question mark, because there's no accounting for it. There's no accounting for it. And this happens, by the way, on the left and the right. There are super PACs. There's Future Forward USA PAC, who gave tons of money to Democrats. There's the America PAC, which is Elon Musk's PAC, which he was supporting Trump. There's the Senate Leadership Fund, or One Nation, which is a huge Republican PAC. There's Senate Majority PAC. Oh, there's a Fair Shake, which is a crypto PAC, and they just support crypto. Anyone who supports crypto, they support crypto. So they've been kind of neither right or left, but just crypto forward, which is kind of interesting. And the 2024 cycle was the most expensive in U.S. history, and that will only go up in the future. And it's like, how much money do we want to spend on elections? So what's being done? Well, you ask. There is an act that has, I think it's actually come up a few times now. It's called the Disclose. The Disclose Act would require any organization spending $10,000 or more on elections to disclose it to its donors. I don't know. But a lot of people say the only way to change this is to make a constitutional amendment. Basically I guess that would be a constitutional amendment to the First Amendment of free speech, saying that doesn't include money to election campaigns. I'm not sure exactly, though. I didn't study that. But I guess you as a person, voting in primaries is pretty important, because the way that money is spent, from what I've read, for people who are already known candidates, money spent on them only helps so much. I think the money spent on tearing down their opponent sometimes helps more, which is unfortunate because we're all sick of these ads, man. The ads are like, stop. But what the money really does is helps get people who are unknown known. Like, you're a nobody until a lot of money is spent on you. And so it really controls who gets to run for office and who gets to stay in the race. So if a party, and this is true of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, if they've decided that an up-and-coming candidate who may be very popular and very well-rounded doesn't meet what they like, now they're not supposed to talk to their super PACs, but it can make a difference how much money is spent on these up-and-coming candidates. So that's why I think of voting in your primaries. So if you're a state, some have open primaries. This is something if you're from out of our country. Some states have open primaries, so you can vote either Republican or Democrat. Some states you can only vote if you're registered Democrat in the Democratic primaries or registered Republican in the Republican primaries. If you're registered independent, you can't vote in either. I don't know. Different states have different rules. I don't know them all. But voting in your primaries. I would say reaching out to your Congress people and asking for campaign finance reform. I think that's what that would be called. There are some of these websites. There's one called Open Secrets. There are others you can look up. They usually have a .org, website address. But this one called Open Secrets, you can look and see who's donating to what a little bit. Although, still there's dark money. You're not going to see. And I wonder even more with crypto, how much money. And then people say AI, depending on which candidate's supporting what, AI can be tweaked do give disinformation and stuff. Have you guys heard that? I don't know. We just did a video all about AI data centers, but we didn't get into the ins and outs of the different AI models and what they allow and don't allow. That's like a whole different thing to study up on. I'm not sure. And then the crypto thing, you know, I don't know how much money in the world is in crypto and can be spent in ways that it's not tracked. I just don't know. Money, 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 money. Anyway, so that's just sort of the basics of the Citizens United. Oh, and then I was just about to post this video, and I went onto Facebook real quick, and I saw that there was just, like, today, like, the article just came out today that the Supreme Court voted. And I couldn't quite understand it, honestly. It wasn't quite to do with the Citizens United, but I think it was opening up. I don't know. I didn't quite understand what it was, but it was like opening up. I'm not sure. I'd have to read the article. I didn't read it. No, you guys could look it up. But that happened just, like, literally just now, and I just saw the headline. I'm not sure. I won't try to. So, oh, you know how this disclose? It stands for something. It stands for democracy is strengthened. It's so stupid. It feels like one of those where they were like, we'll call it disclose now. Come up with that. That stands for. Why does everything have to stand for something? Democracy is strengthened by casting light on spending on elections. But it's funny because they have is an I, but just democracy is strengthened, but then the by doesn't have a letter. Casting light on spending and elections act. That's what this is. And I should look into this separately maybe, because I don't know everything about it. But this is something that, if you're familiar with Bernie Sanders, I see he talks a lot about spending because he feels like his opinion is that it can be used as bribery because of the way this part works. It's like giving bribes, like saying, I will donate to this super PAC that supports you if you scratch my back. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, for sure. I mean, anytime you have people with millions of dollars going into things, yeah, it's a problem. And Bernie, by the way, Sanders says that about left and right. He's not saying one or the other. He's complaining about both, just so you know. I don't know. By the way, I forgot to say at the beginning, I'm not an expert. I just was curious because I saw it come up. I guess it was Bernie actually. It was some tweet he put out or something, but it said Citizens United, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? I should know more about this. And it's weird because these super PACs, I remember first hearing about them so many years ago. I feel like it may have been back when on Comedy Central, when Stephen Colbert was still on The Daily Show. I feel like it was that long ago. Would that have been 2010? And he started like a super PAC, remember that? And it made $1 million. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. I feel like that's what happened. Anyway. So anybody can donate money to the nonprofit. The nonprofit can then give the money to the super PACs. And it's reported to the FEC as just the nonprofit giving the money. And then the super PAC can support a candidate independent of the candidate. They're supposed to legally be independent of each other. So that's the sitch. All right, guys, I will talk to you soon. Follow the money. It just feels like it gives so much power to these wealthy anonymous donors. So much power. Like, what could a person who can only donate $5 or $20? I guess you could try to support candidates who say they don't take. I don't know, because let's say I'm a person who says I don't want money outside of my donors, but that doesn't mean a super PAC couldn't start doing something, right? I don't know. You know, if this money didn't go towards this, if they outlawed this, right? You know where this money would go? I bet you it would just, instead of going to here, it would go straight to online influencers, to television networks that are willing to put their, stations towards certain politicians. It would go towards, like, somebody'd probably offer me $1 million to, no, I'm just kidding. But if you want to, no, I bet it would go towards individuals, because that would be, that's a free speech you'd have trouble fighting, I think. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? The money's going to go somewhere, isn't it? Oh no, did my pen die? But yeah, there are limits on how much money a person or can give directly to a candidate. There's like tight limits on that. And you have to declare